Good morning, Professor Saumya Liyanage. I'm extremely grateful that you came to speak in my Kathikawa program. And the reason I called you, now you're a professor of drama, right? But I knew you since my childhood as an actor. And I had admired you very much in film and very recently in Antique Kadeka Maranaya. Congratulations, by the way, that was absolutely super acting. So you are some person I have seen who grew up as an actor from an actor family, and now you have become an academic and a professor. You did your PhD in the West in English. And I always find that when people like you come and speak to us about your own journeys of language learning, right? It can be an inspiration to so many more people. And I'm very grateful when you come and kind of show us that ladder, because ladders are needed by anyone. I don't mean social climbing. I mean a ladder towards knowledge, right? And then people like you, Professor Amarakirti, all of you, by telling your story, you give a template to young people here to know that it's possible, right? So thank you. Now you're a professor of drama. Which department exactly, Professor? In which?
Yes, professor in drama and theater, and I'm working at the Department of Drama, Oriental Ballet and Contemporary Dance, a bit longer title.
Okay, so this is in the Visual and Performing Arts University.
Yes.
Is it different from the name?
Sorry, I didn't get your...
The name of the university is Visual and Performing Arts University, right?
Yeah, University of the Visual and Performing Arts. That is the title of the university.
Exactly. Sometimes it keeps changing. I get confused sometimes.
Yeah. That's true.
So, Professor, now my general theme that I will discuss with you is if drama, the dramatic art, can actually help in learning this language. As you know, English is a very feared language, unfortunately, among many Sri Lankans who are not exposed to it. And I want you specifically to touch upon how drama can help in overcoming that fear, in improvement. But I want you to tell me how your personal journey actually proved that point. So I will be quiet and I want you to tell me your journey of learning English. And when I want to intervene, I will. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Madhu. Thanks for having me in this wonderful discussion forum, I would say. And I have been really interested in your work throughout this time. I have seen a lot of materials that you have been producing to help young people to improve their language skills. And at the same time, even their thinking pattern. So, so it is a great pleasure for me to be here and talking to you and sharing my ideas as well as my experience that I have gone through so far. And yes, of course, I would really like to talk about theater drama and its relationship to the language study as well. But at the same time, this would be a kind of my personal story that I would like to share with you. It's a kind of anecdote, with a small anecdote that I would like to begin with. And as you may know that I lived in Horona area, 25 kilometers away from Colombo. And as a child, I was schooling at a particular school there called Rajakiya Mahavidyalaya at that time, in early 70s. And Rajakiya Vidyalaya, later it was named as Royal College, but people used to say Jungle Royal because it was located in a rubber this plantation area. So it was a kind of, I'm not degrading my school at all, but that is what, kids used to say, Jungle Royal. So anyway, because there's a royal, this prestigious royal in Colombo. That's why, they had this duality between two royals. Anyhow, I didn't have an English education, proper English education during my primary education, Madhu. as you clearly mentioned earlier, that yes, my father was a teacher and my mother also, she was also a teacher. Both were graduated from the University of California in early 60s. And at the same time, my father was thoroughly engaged with artistic practices, acting, theater, writing, and reading, etc. And we had a wonderful childhood at the time because we encountered lots of artists at my place, similar to your childhood. Maybe intellectuals and artists all the time they came to see our parents, and we were listening to their political and political discussions they had at the time, and they were discussing about literature, theater, and films, etc. It it was a kind of very fulfilled experience. So, but I had three brothers, so I was the elder in my family, and even though our childhood was very much flourished with lots of activities, lots of fun things. At the same time, we have gone through hardship as well because of my father's involvement with politics and theater, and he lost his job once, etc. So we went through a lot of hardships as well. But I had my education in Sinhala language, and that was my mother tongue. And we didn't speak English at my household environment. But luckily, my father was a kind of bilingual, even though he didn't use English in many occasions, as a communicative medium. But he read a lot of books in English. He had the knowledge of language. He had this competency. Because of that, we had a wonderful library in my house. That was the first inspiration, that was the true inspiration that I had, because I saw a lot of dramatists, playwrights work there. Eugene O'Neill, Ibsen, Chekhov, Brecht, etc. And at the same time, 19th century literature we had in our library, and some political writings of Lenin and Marx and Engels. I think some people have this similar kind of experience in their childhoods as well, because in early 80s and 90s we had this cultural sphere, particularly influenced by Russian literature and so on. So I went to this school there, and I was not a very successful student as well.
May I interrupt you? So when you saw those English dramas as a child, did you just try to turn the pages and read? And I don't think you could have read Ionesco when you were a child. So what was the relationship with this book?
Yes, I wanted to read those texts actually, but it was very much complicated to me because of the language. But it was a kind of self-learning that I started through reading, basically. And I remember once actually when I was doing my A-levels, Caucasian Chalk Circle was there, and I started reading Caucasian Chalk Circle in English, because we had this text for the A-levels, Hunwate Kata. And with my father's help, I managed to grasp some of the materials from this English text. And wonderful thing happened during that time. There was a big seminar organized by one of the schools there, Takshila Madhya Mahavidyalaya, and Mr. The translator and the director of Hunwate Katawa,
Henry Jaisena.
Yes, Henry Jaisena. He was invited to talk at this particular occasion, and I was thrilled. And then I went there. The hall was filled with students, and teachers, and it was very, very intense. And then we had a chance to raise questions, ask questions. Nobody was asking a question there. People were very much backward, particularly students.
And anyway, Henry Jackson was such a personality. Even
such
I
a
personality,
and
yes.
He sang a lot of songs, and he started talking about his translation and the beauty of his language, etc., etc. He was a massive person.
Exactly.
And he's standing there. He's standing there on stage, like Asada. And now what I wanted to do is to stand up and ask questions. But tactically, because I was reading this English text, we have this Pandita Manasano at that time. As students, A-level students, we are reading and we are exploring a lot of materials, and we are very much critical to those texts at that time, whether it is right or wrong. So with this arrogance, I would say, so I started questioning him. I said that you have omitted a lot of materials from the original text. So as an A-level student, I am asking these questions. Sir, you have omitted all these, important materials from this original text, and why did you do that, etc., etc. And at the same time, I asked him, do you agree if I say that Brecht is a socialist rather than a humanist? My goodness, he was a bit upset. So I was continually asking questions, and one teacher came up to me and said, "Oi, Lamya, indagan." Because I was asking one by one, all the questions that I had in my mind at the time. Then Henry Jayasena was a bit annoyed. I think annoyed by my continual questioning, and it was a kind of Panditamani prasna that I was asking from this eminent person. And he suddenly said, "Mama danne naha me Brecht samajawadida mokadda kiyala. Me mata kiyanna tiyenne eya manawa hitawadiyeක් කියන එක විතරයි." Then this teacher came up to me and said, "Oy lamaya indaganna, there are so many other people here to ask questions. You sit down." Then I was humiliated, and I stopped my questioning. That was wonderful.
I hope your relationship with that actor became better when you also became an actor. Did you ever apologize or explain that what happened?
Yeah.
I don't think you needed to apologize, because
but
asking a question
after many years.
Yes.
But after many years, this is the beauty of these things, these incidents and memories. After many years, I was working at the university as a probationary lecturer, and I was invited to deliver a small talk at a particular drama workshop. It was held at this theater, John De Silva Theater. And the previous speaker was Dr. Henry Jayasena.
He was doctor?
He was. He had this honorary doctorate later.
Yes.
So then I went there, and he was there as well. Then he introduced me to this audience, students' body, and suddenly said, "Yeah, now I would like to introduce my our next speaker here, Saumya Liyanage." I remember that Saumya Liyanage started questioning me when he was in the A-levels in Horan area, Akela. He started talking about that because even I didn't know that he recognized me at that time. I think somebody had told him that this student is Hemasri Liyanage's son. Some other he had this information at that time. But 10-15 years back, he remembered this, and he actually gave me a good compliment, and good reputation, and at the same time he was not angry at all. He's a very mature.
I find the Henry, I mean, I used to call him Henry Mama, one of the most wonderful human beings I had ever met. It's a very
Exactly.
short connection, but it was lovely. Through Pradeep, I met him as well. And also, Saumya, I wanted to say, even at that age, in A level, you knew what education was, because education is about questioning. So how did
Exactly.
yeah. So how was your school journey? Were you kind of a controversial student, or were you this obedient person who's like a good
No,
student? Yeah.
I was not a kind of obedient student at all, but I was very much engaged with aesthetic activities at school, like, singing, poetry recitals, drama, and music, and paintings as well. So I used to draw a lot because my father had that skill as well as a playwright and dramatist. He used to draw his costumes, etc. And because of that influence, I think I got this skill of drawing things, and I did a lot of portraits, etc. at the time. And so
Your brother is also a musician, right? In the Chapa?
yes, he was my
And
younger
right. Who was the third
youngest
brother?
brother, and
He also an artistic person, the third brother?
yeah, the next to me, he's Saumya Liyange, and he's actually an artist. He's the one who did this portrait.
Oh, I see.
As you can
I
see
saw
this
that.
in
Yeah. So the
this
whole
one.
yeah, amazing. So the whole family was extremely artistic, right? Was your
To
mother
some
also an
extent.
artist?
To some extent, I suppose,
Yeah. Your
it
mother?
is because of my family background, I suppose, because even my mother was not an actor or a musician, but she could sing nicely, and I think the ability to sing and the music knowledge came through her to us, and she has done very few acting with my father in their
I see.
early time.
Okay.
Yeah. So my school time, in my primary education, as I said, I was not a very successful student in terms of this conventional academic learning.
Hmm.
The mathematics, science, and all these subjects were very much difficult for me. That doesn't mean that I don't like them. Actually, I started liking mathematics and science later period. Somehow or other, the context was completely different, and I began to dislike all these subjects. But I like to do a lot of other aesthetic subjects. But
How
at the
was,
same time, I was a prominent student.
yeah, how was English in your school? How was the
English
subject of
was not that much prominent. I remember one friend, a friend of mine. He was the only person who could do English, to some extent. He was very acquainted with the language at the time, and the teacher was very much supportive to him. So she was very supportive to that friend, because he can speak a little bit, and he writes in English, etc. All the other members of the class, we were very poor in English language, and because of that, we were neglected, and we didn't care about it. That's what happened. But at home, I started reading in English. So I maintained a small diary, and I started writing all these difficult words, and I take the dictionary and I write all the meanings. That was a self-learning. But then later, because I sat for the scholarship exam and I failed, successfully failed.
grade
Then
5? Grade 5.
grade 5, yeah, successfully managed to get the fail marks.
Yeah.
Then, but I was very sad. I cried on that day. I remember, not because that I failed the scholarship exam, but because my closest friend got uh, highest marks, and I knew that he's going to leave the school. He was my childhood friend. Now he is a consultant doctor living in Melbourne. Dinesh Epitavela. He was my childhood friend up until, but now he is a very close friend of mine. So she got this scholarship and went to Royal College. I stayed at Jungle Royal. He went to Big Royal in Colombo. But we had our relationship throughout the time, and he used to come to our house. So now, then what happened was, actually my father decided to put me in another school after this scholarship exams. To grade 6, I went to Korana Vidyaratna Vishwavidyapita or Vidyaratna Pirivena. It was a Pirivena, partly a Pirivena, where monks study their, religious texts, etc., and other things, and partly a boys' school. Then there, at Vidyaratna Pirivena or Vidyaratna Vishwavidyapita, was a kind of turning point in my life. Similar to my father, he was a all boy, and Mr. Dharmasit Bandaranayak, and also most of artists studied there. And the school environment was completely different. I remember one thing that changed my entire life and thinking as a student. One thing, two things actually. One thing is I met wonderful ideal models there, teachers, a few teachers who managed to ignite our desire of, ignite our passion towards arts and culture and politics even. I remember my O-level teacher was a poet and a writer and songwriter, but he taught science. And his very famous songwriter, Priyananda Vijayasundara, now he lives in New Zealand. He migrated to New Zealand a few years back. So likewise, he was very much inspirational person to us, because he writes, we hear a lot of songs written by him, and at the same time he teaches science beautifully. And I started liking science as a discipline because of this man, this ideal person, and his language, his presence, his way of behaving in the school. All these things actually inspired us. So likewise, there are a few other teachers, like there was another teacher who taught us Sinhala and literature. He beautifully, taught all these things to us. And because of that, we started reading a lot of literature, Sinhala literature, short stories, because he was a short story writer. He's not just a teacher who teaches Sinhala, but he writes short stories.
Yes, Saumya, was there a good library in that Pirivena school?
That is what I want to mention. Now I am coming to that point, Madhu, because I think you sensed it. You sensed something else that triggered my life. Of course, when we were doing our O-levels, grade 10, we had a annual concert, and I was very eagerly engaged with these activities, and with my friends we did lots of performances, drama, singing, all these things, and we won lots of certificates and awards at this award ceremony. Then our principal was even at that time he was a monk. So then he stood up and announced at the end of this award ceremony, now I'm going to give this particular class where I was studying. He said, this class has gained lots of awards at the award ceremony, and I will give them another award. Our school, Horna Vidyaratna Vishwavidyapite, had two libraries, two wonderful libraries. One for O-level, section, one for A-level section, and Paschatupadi postgraduate people. Because we had, after school, we had this Paschatupadi postgraduate studies as well.
In the same place. In the same space as the school, you also had another Peter. I see.
Another Peter, yes, like, people can register and read their postgraduate studies. It's a private postgraduate institution.
Okay.
And the Pirivena. And we had this temple joining close by as well. So it was a cultural hub in a sense. And then with this announcement, actually, I was rejoiced.
What was the announcement, Saumya?
The announcement was, yes, I couldn't mention. The announcement was, the principal said, now from today onwards, the kids who are studying in this particular class can use both libraries until they leave this school.
Gosh, that's wonderful.
Right? Because earlier, we didn't have the access to this upper level big library. So while being in O-level, in this O-level class, we had a chance to go to, big library. That was the door that he opened for us. Wonderful. For the first time in my life, I was exposed to all this, the ocean of literature. Like, 19th century Russian literature, Gogol, Chekhov, Turgenev, all these, you name it. So many wonderful writers, 19th century Russian literature. Gogol, Gorky, and...
These were in English? These were English or Sinhala?
Translations, basically, translations. And
Sinhala or English?
Yeah, English and Sinhala, both were there.
Okay,
both
cool.
were, yes. And at the same time, then I started reading small English texts. I remember that Amare mentioned this point in his discussion. We had there was an uncle, we call him uncle, book uncle, or pot uncle. Pot uncle came, he comes to our school twice or thrice a week. He's a very old guy, wearing a national, attire. But he has got a huge knowledge of books. He's a very poor man, but with the, with a lot of books he comes and he sells books at our school. And we used to go there. And for the first time, I saw some rare books in his collection. Like I was doing, for my A-levels, I was doing Sinhala literature and economics. And I wanted to do Russian language. What a terrible idea at the time. In Horna area, I didn't have a single teacher to learn Russian. Then I went to see my principal and said, Principal Hamuduru. And I said, Hamuduru, I wanted to do Russian for my A-levels. He said, what? Yes, I wanted to do Russian. What happened was I was reading continuously and, passionately this 19th century Russian literature, and I wanted to read these texts in Russian. That was the idea behind this, all this. Then, luckily, see these people's, the support that they gave us. I don't know what would happen if a kid goes and, asks a principal, I want to do Italian or something like that, and he will be punished.
Yeah.
But at the time, he said, okay, Saumya, if you want to do Russian, you go and find a teacher, find a class, and do your Russian. I will allow you to sit for the A-levels. Then for my
Saumya, I
A-levels.
just want to can you tell me the name of that Buddhist monk, please?
Yeah. Kahatapitiye Rahul Thera.
Yes, and I wanted to think of how wonderful it is that he encouraged dance, drama, music in a school. This is not what we expect to see now. And that he knew the worth of libraries, and more importantly, that gift he gave, opening up a dimension of books. What a liberal thinker that would have been, and probably created you in the process. Yes.
Exactly. And finally, I became the head prefect of that school as well later. Somehow or other, and there was another student, one of my closest friends in the same class doing A-levels with me, and he wanted to do English. Can you believe that?
A-level?
He was living in this Horana area in 1990. He wanted to do English for A-levels. And we didn't have a teacher. We didn't have that subject in our school. He was also allowed. And he found a teacher because we had some good educated, English educated people around that area. People who are very much acquainted with, literature and English, etc. And he found a teacher, but I couldn't find a teacher. I came to Colombo, to the embassy, and found a teacher there. And I used to come every Saturday to Colombo, 2.5 hours sometimes, travel time. And I started learning Russian. But it was a great exposure for me. And my friend actually started learning English language and Shakespeare and all this stuff. And finally, he managed to go to the University of Colombo.
Wow.
Wonderful. So that was the story behind all these, all these activities that we have achieved, all these things that we have achieved. So,
Saumya, I just want to intervene there because I recently did a research on a couple of writers. And one thing, I interviewed 10 people, and all of them are multiple award-winning writers. One thing in common that they all spoke about was an influential teacher, sometimes an adult, who exposed them to the world of books. It's amazing. It comes in every story. One is enough. And then I was thinking, what a thing, like when you come and say these things, I hope if there are teachers listening, they realize that the power they can wield, to open it, just give the passion, the love, that's enough. Then the child will go. But not to critically kill them, not to kill questions. So I'm very glad you speak about it because all of you and these other people, if I mention the names, you'll know who I'm talking about. Everyone, one person who opened their world for them.
Yeah, I remember now, actually, while I was doing economics for my A-levels, actually, my friend and myself, we used to go to this book uncle. And I found this book, book written by Adam Smith. Then we started reading Adam Smith while doing A-levels.
Yeah.
My goodness, we couldn't understand a single sentence. Okay. But still, we were very much passionate because of my economics teacher. He was graduated from the University of Peradeniya and he did his English degree in English. And he was teaching there at the time. And because of that inspiration, we started reading Adam Smith while doing A-levels. And actually, you don't need to read Adam Smith to get higher marks. But, we managed to get through A-levels luckily. But we didn't we didn't get high marks or, all these A's or A pluses. No, not at all. I passed the A-level and luckily had the chance to go to the university. Then only I realized the notion of learning, So during my university,
which campus, Saumya, did you get into?
University of Kelaniya, Faculty of Arts.
Yes.
So there, I did a general degree actually. So then I continued my Russian language study there as well. So Russian is a part of my degree. For 3 years, I did Russian, Sinhala language and literature, and mass communication.
Wow.
Those are the subjects that I did. No drama and theater at all.
Okay. Were you acting at this time, or that career hadn't started?
That career, actually, I started my acting career just before I entered into the university. While there's a transitional period at that time.
Yes.
After you do your A levels, you have to stay at home for one year or so.
Yeah.
Then you go to the university. So during that transitional period, I was invited to play a character, the teledrama directed by Professor Ariratna Atugala. That was my first screen appearance.
What's the name?
Sittara Gurunase. So I had a chance to work with my father. My father played this Sittara Gurunase role of Sittara Gurunase, and I played 2 roles, actually, twins roles, the sons of Sittara Gurunase. It's about a Gurunase who lives in a remote area, and he confronts lots of issues because of this social and cultural transformation happening at the time. So that was my first acting experience. Then I went to the university, and now I had this serious idea about learning English. So because when I was listening to lectures given by my professors at the Department of Mass Communication, particularly Professor Sunanda Mahendra, he was a wonderful lecturer, speaker. I was inspired, and I asked a lot of questions from him. There are lots of students in my lecture, but I asked questions.
So in English?
I was very much sorry.
English medium lectures or Sinhala?
No. The medium was Sinhala.
Sinhala, okay.
Medium was Sinhala.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll tell you how I switched into English environment and English language learning environment. Then, so we write assignments in Sinhala and we submit. Then I realized one day, actually, I saw the one girl. She always gets lots of high marks for her assignments, A+. Then I approached this girl and I talked to her. I was a bit obsessed with her presence as well at the time. I didn't have a girlfriend, and I was obsessed with her presence as well. Then I approached her and talked to her a couple of times. And then she said, I go to, I asked her, how do you write these good assignments? I have seen that you have referred a lot of materials from other sources. How do you do these things? So I didn't know these references and all this stuff at that time. And then she said, I go to British Council and there are lots of books there. So I borrow some books, English books. I read English books. That's why I read in English, and then I write my assignments in Sinhala, because she was bilingual. She was very much bilingual and good. Then one day she had she was studying at the time there, and at the same time she was staying at a nice place in there's a girls' hostel in Kolupiti area. You are not allowed to go there at all. It's a very restricted area because all the girls
I mean, boys are not allowed to go there.
Not allowed at all, and it is a YWCA girls' hostel. One day I went there. I contacted this girl, and because I wanted to borrow this particular mass communication book from her. It was wonderful, and she was there, and we met at the foyer, and I stayed there for a couple of minutes and I borrowed this book and I started reading. This is an English book written by a famous theorist on mass communication. And wonderful. I was rejoiced, to read this. And at the same time, I was interested in this girl as well, So my advice is, you can find a girl. At the same time, you can learn English as well, girl or boy, either way.
I hope you were not stalking her, Saumya. You were not stalking her and all that. No? So did she?
Either way, a boy or a girl.
Did she not introduce you to the British Council? Didn't you want to join things like that? She also
unfortunately, I think I missed that point. I think, unfortunately, I missed that point because my desire to meet her and talk to her,
that was predominant.
That were the predominant idea behind that.
Okay.
There were few things going on at the time.
But I can't tell here publicly to fall in love with an English speaker because that's wrong on so many levels.
No.
Right?
No.
But even to have someone within your radar who is exposed to the language can help. Like, for example, you had someone within your world which showed the benefit of reading in English. Right. So, Saumya, why did you... Saumya, why did you do a general degree? Is that choice or you couldn't get the marks in the first year?
I think actually I had my marks, but I actually entered to the university as a special student, special entry.
Right.
So at the time they had this rule: if you are a special student, you cannot do a special degree.
That's still the rule. Yeah, you're supposed to. Oh, I thought
exactly.
Oh, okay. So what happened after you graduated?
So then then I started reading mass communication books in English and try to understand meanings and all this stuff, the structural patterns of language, structures and the patterns of language, the ways that people, express ideas, etc. And at the same time, there's another important thing happened. During my undergraduate years, then the English department of the University of Kelaniya wanted to do a play written by famous playwright Cyril Churchill. The play was Clouds 9. For the first time, I was auditioned and I was selected to play a black African character.
Saumya, who told that play? Who was there in the English department? People like Manik?
I think so, yes. Professor Manik was there.
Just to talk about Cloud 9.
She was a kind of, after that, actually, she was a lifelong friend. She became a lifelong friend and a mentor as well.
Right. I find that drama specifically very eye-opening, the Churchill drama, because...
And even Dr. Romola was there at the time. Dr. Romola was there. And,
and
Professor Niroshini and all these people were there.
Yeah, very dynamic place. I can imagine of people who were thinking differently, who thought, because even to choose that play, I remember it being said, I've thought that play myself, the female character was played by a bearded man.
Yeah.
Just to show that she molds herself to the male gaze. So that kind of advanced thinking, I mean, for you to...
Advanced thinking, at the same time, the text was very much post-dramatic or, postmodern kind of text.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you played the slave who was very abject and very polite. And,
Yes. So, the thing is, I had a great fear. Even though I was selected, I had a great fear whether I could do this because I am not very much familiar with the language, or even, performing a character in English was a very challenging task for me. But we started rehearsing.
Why did they ask you? Did you audition or they asked you, Saumya? How did you get in?
They asked me, actually. They came up to me and asked me, and we had a small audition as well.
Okay.
And I read a couple of segments of the play for them. They said, okay, that's fine, Saumya. We can learn and we can, rehearse and you can do this. And there's a bunch of beautiful people there, girls and boys who involved with this production. And they were the teachers of me. I at the same time, I was really happy because now I have a chance to learn and listen to listen to this language every day with this English speaking society. Particularly, I knew that the English department had this environment, and a lot of students, they speak in English, and they study French. And then I started doing a small course. I took a course um, for French as well during my undergraduate years. I started learning French a little bit, then and English as well, because we had this ILT, English as a second language classes.
Exactly, that's where I teach actually. That's my profession.
Yes, yeah. So it helped me a lot as well. So I was very interested in that class because I started talking, nonsense, because I made lots of mistakes, but I didn't care about that. I didn't care about that because of my orientation as an actor, I suppose. I didn't have that problem of humiliation or suppression.
So
Yes.
one of the main things that we encounter as English teachers is this feeling of inferiority people have, which makes them terrified of making mistakes. Right?
Exactly.
Now, the sentence that you said, maybe because I'm an actor, it didn't matter to me. What in an actor makes that kind of confidence come, Saumya? What is it in being an actor that makes you really not care about the audience, in fact? While as normal people would very much start there. Will I be laughed at? Will I be judged? Do you all have like this kind of overall viewpoint?
Yeah.
This doesn't matter.
Being an actor or a performer, you need to overcome this the stage fright or fear of being in front of an audience, because people are watching all the time. Their eyes are directed towards you, and you are being judged to some extent. You are being observed. But as an actor, you need to forget that. There's a famous saying that one of the greatest actors and directors in 19th century, Konstantin Stanislavski, he says that, if you want to do acting, you need to use the idea of public solitude. The idea of public solitude is you are living in a public sphere or a context, but you are alone. That's how you do acting. So on stage, you are working with your actor, or you with your co-actor, you are performing. So you imagine that you are isolated in this particular room, but hundreds of people just beyond this footlight, they are watching at you all the time. But I'm isolated within this particular sphere, and I'm just imagining that I'm performing a character with my co-actor. She is my wife now. I'm the husband. So we live in this particular moment. I don't care about this, other factors. So that is public solitude. You are living in a public environment, but solitude. Likewise, and there's another concept that he introduced, this fourth wall, hataravana bittiya. In an arena theater, you see, arena theater is a kind of square theater, In this arena theater, you have a fourth wall. Fourth wall is hataravana bittiya, which is invisible. The fourth wall creates the gap between the stage and the audience. You have this back wall, side walls, and the frontal wall. But frontal wall is removed actually in the theater. You have this screen. When the screen opens, you can see what is happening in this box. So the fourth wall is there. It is imaginative wall. Beyond that wall, you have this audience, hundreds of people sitting there watching at you. But as an actor, you imagine that there's a wall here. So I don't care about these people. Likewise, when you are using your language, when you are practicing, just imagine that there's a wall in between. You know, there's a fourth wall. People are maybe they are watching at you, they are observing whether you are making mistakes or not. But just imagine, forget them. Imagine this fourth wall is there in between you and others, and you play your game. That's how you can, overcome this.
Yeah.
I'll tell you another small thing.
Saumya, if I may interrupt, I can see what that kind of training does in terms of confidence. And I think,
Yes.
to some extent, every, in fact, when I was the head of the ELTU at Japura, drama was a component. Kaushalya Fernandez came and taught. There were others who came and taught. Nadi was sometimes, because drama is very much about confidence. And people like Sachi Mendes came and taught them how to shout through the voice, right? But the main difference between your example, the allegory, so to say, and speaking is that speaking is a two-way thing. No? They need to communicate, they will get a response. So in that sense, it's critically different from dramatic performance. Because when I speak, I also expect you to understand and get back to me. So with that kind of dramatic training, also, how do you make the leap to actually listening and being aware of that person in front of you as a respondent? Would there be a slight disconnect? Would it be a slight disconnect with how you are trained?
The final part I didn't clearly hear.
My point is that's different from an actor who doesn't have to wait for a response from the audience. If at all he will expect is a clap or an applause or whatever. But human communication on a normal, non-dramatic level is a two-way thing. Where I know that you understand and I'm also waiting for a response from you. So I see that communication level of confidence, how important that training is. But is it different from a normal speaker who will have to be aware of the audience because there is now a response that he needs to elicit, because that is human communication, right?
Yeah.
How would drama help in that context?
Madhu, in different ways that you can articulate this thing. As you clearly mentioned, when you are using a particular language with somebody else, it is dialogic.
Exactly.
This dialogic can, two-way communication, of course. And there are differences between, the performing on stage and, having a conversation with another person. But as you mentioned, developing your confidence and your presence as a speaker, theater drama definitely helps a lot. Drama helps a lot for us to enhance our skills, our confidence level, and at the same time, our communication, communicative levels, vocabulary. Vocabulary is a problematic issue sometimes for our students when they are speaking English. So in order to develop your vocabulary, drama helps a lot, and the text and developing conversations, how to develop conversations, how to use ideas to enhance your continual, dialogic conversations. So there are many ways that you can use drama and theater to enhance your language skills as well. But another thing that I would like to share with you, Madhu, is now during my undergraduate years now. So that was my first encounter with the English department, and then I started having lots of friends who study English language and literature and speak in English. So during my, in my leisure time, I wanted to talk with them, and then I had very strong connections with a few English language students. Then they are still my closest friends. Actually, now they became my lifelong companions.
This is also something Professor Liyanage Amarakirti spoke about, that he had companionship among the English speaker in campus, right? Saumya, looking at your own campus now,
Yeah.
is this kind of connection still available? Both you and I are still within the campuses.
Recently, I haven't been to. I don't have that kind of thorough observation now, Madhu, to comment on that on your question. But it should be sustained. That kind of environment or the opportunity should be sustained for students to have because generally I know that there are so many gaps between the English department and other departments.
They're called the Kultur department anyway.
Kultur or the other groups, etc. But actually, I am one of the few people who broke that barrier there. Because I came from English Sinhala speaking. I came from a Sinhala speaking background, but I started writing poetry in English because of some of my friends' influence who were studying at the English department. For the first time, I wrote a poetry poem, and it was published in their magazine. So gradually, I started writing in English because of my friends. And I used to give all these my writings to my friends, and they corrected my language. Through those activities I learned. So all these things were happening in our canteens, not in classrooms.
Exactly.
We had a canteen called Hilton. We were there throughout the day with all these girls and boys. And we were talking and learning and writing poems, singing. So all these activities enhanced our language learning. And I started, working with these English-speaking students. Because of that, I had a chance to listen to this language a lot. Throughout the day, I listened to them. Then I captured some of the phrases and ideas or the terms that you can use in your conversation. So I used to have a small diary with me. So I write all these things, the words that I don't know, etc. So then one day, the English department invited an internationally renowned writer. I don't remember his name, African writer. At the time, actually, I was very much interested in African writing, like Chinua Achebe and Ngugi wa Thiong'o, Nua Sentengo, all these writers' work. And I was very much interested in reading short stories of
What's the name? Carol Phillips, by any chance?
Yes, I think.
Because just tell me, I'm few years older than you. So I remember interviewing Carol Phillips for the Sunday Times during these times. So
Carol Phillips.
Yes, crossing the river.
He came.
Yes.
he came to deliver a lecture on African literature. I was rushed to that place. I went there with my friends. Now the people who are listening to this conversation, they would understand how you could overcome this fear and the humiliation. I was the only person who came from a different discipline background. All others were English students and the academics. I was sitting there with my friends, and he delivered his talk, and then he asked the audience to ask questions, and the audience is like stuck. like no questions, nothing, no comments, nothing whatsoever. Then I was writing some questions in my diary in English. I had 5 questions because I was very much familiar with some of the writers, African writers, etc. So I was writing few questions, and my friend Melanie from the English department, she was next to me, and I showed these questions to Melanie and said, Melanie, just see whether these questions are correct, grammatically correct or not. And she made little small adjustments. Then I stood up, started asking all these questions while keeping my diary in front of me. I was just literally reading my questions, Madhu. I didn't have a problem at all. I didn't have a fear. I was pushing myself. I had my fear and suppression within myself, but I wanted to break that. I wanted to overcome this problem, which has been there for many years within myself, which dragged me behind all the time. So this is how then it was like a kind of emancipation.
Yeah, you crossed the
kind
line.
Of emancipation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I asked these questions, and the author was delighted. I would say, he enjoyed my questions. And I remember after finishing this seminar, he came up to me and said, Saumya, good questions, huh? That is what he said, and he went. So that was a very memorable moment in my learning, language learning career. So then Professor, then we staged this play, Cyril Churchill's play, and luckily Professor Nilofer Dimel came to see this play, and she came to the backstage on that particular night, and she wanted to meet me. I didn't know her at that time, and she came and asked me, Saumya, I'm doing a play. Would you like to join us? Then I said, wonderful, Professor, no problem. I would really like to come and, work with you. Then she invited to do another play in English. Then I went to the University of Colombo every week to rehearse a play, which was another big experience in terms of learning language, at the same time learning theater.
What's the name of the play, Saumya?
Yeah, Nkrumah Afrikaans, directed by Professor Nilofer Dimel, and the original playwright, Femi Osofisan. He also came from Nigeria, I think, and wonderful. I met another group of people, English-speaking theater people, Jerome de Silva and his theater group, and Kaushalya Fernando, I met there. And I was a student from University of California, and with all these group members, actually, we did this production. Again, it was a journey through language, journey of language learning for me, a very thorough journey, and but very interesting and eye-opening journey for me. So similarly, so I got this orientation, that was my language orientation.
Exactly.
Then I had a chance to.
Saumya, as an English teacher, if I were to step back, then I would think that from what you say, the basic drama techniques might be useful to be given to all language learners, no? Not to make them actors, but simply for that confidence level, maybe we should, as English teachers, ESL teachers, think seriously about incorporating dramatic techniques, at least at basic level, with no
Exactly.
connection to English, but simply to give them that bodily confidence. It's a physical thing, no? Speech
Yeah.
is physically opening your mouth and talking. So maybe we should
Exactly.
seriously, if some teachers, policymakers are listening, maybe think of taking drama trainers, not to make them dramatists, but to make them bodily confident to approach an unfamiliar language.
Exactly. Because when you are doing theater or drama, you are not consciously focusing about language. You are focusing about some other things as well. So the language learning is happening unconsciously.
Yes.
It's a different process within that context. That's why it is effective sometimes, rather than, sitting and teaching language and grammar.
Exactly. And also something that you said, tying it up to something, it's very effective to have mixed ability groups. People who also know the language, so that your normal conversation, maybe when you're having tea, can be in English. So that is an active learning process within a social group where you have a sense of belonging. So I really think, because the English language teaching is a problematic issue in Sri Lanka, we should think of other ways of approaching this, this task of making people confident in English. Right, so let's continue. After your degree, what did you do?
Then actually I got a chance I actually received a presidential scholarship to pursue a master's degree. Then again, I applied, I contacted several universities, and then I had a chance to go to South Australia. One of the professors there, she was one of my mentors actually, Professor Julie Hollage, professor in drama and theatre, very well-known academic in the field of theatre and drama, and feminist studies as well. So she invited me to this drama center at Flinders University, South Australia. Madhu, even at that time, I was not very much familiar with the language, particularly academic writing and reading.
Yeah.
And this girl I met during my undergraduate years, and finally I had a chance to marry her.
Oh, fine. I did want to ask Saumya, I just leave that out. Excellent.
No, I got married with her.
Yeah.
And she was my kind of lifelong teacher. Now, even nowadays, when I am writing my academic pieces, she reads my work and do all this proofreading, etc. So still, she is a very great helper. So all these things behind, my writings, when I am doing my writings, she always advised me, and but still I make a lot of mistakes, because I didn't have a proper English education. Basically, I learned the language through doing it and using it.
Which is the only way you can Saumya, that
exactly.
is the only way in which you can learn it. This is what I try to tell my students. Just taking notes, studying grammar means nothing. You've got to use it. But
that is what I want to mention here, Madhu. So I went to South Australia for the first time. Then I was compelled to write in English. Academic writing as well as reading. It was a big challenge for me. I was given a room and facilities, computer, and at the same time, I had to learn computer as well, like IT and how to use softwares and typing, etc. Typing in English. Within 2 years, I have to do all these things. I have to write a thesis in English. I have to learn IT and computing and all this stuff. Reading, I should do reading in English, everything. It was a great challenge. So I did to do all these things. I started learning my IT I wanted to my IT knowledge and using all these softwares, word processing, typing in English, and at the same time reading English and writing my assignments and thesis in English. So all these things were coming together, and it was very stressful to some extent. But I had a couple of wonderful English teachers. Because of my English was not that refined at the time. I took some classes. That was wonderful. There were few teachers who helped not native, foreign students who come to this university, Flinders, particularly Chinese students and Japanese, Koreans. And I was the only person from South Asia at the time. They didn't teach grammar at all. They didn't teach grammar. For 6 months, I was taking these classes. They didn't teach grammar. They asked us to read Time magazine, Newsweek. It was very difficult for us. And they asked us to read a passage of an article, and they want us to, talk about it in English without using dictionaries. Without using dictionaries. How can you do that? You can't use dictionary, but you have to read an article from this one of these journals, and you have to talk about it. That was the challenge. And that was learning. That struggle gave you a lot of things. That gives you a lot of things. That's how we learn, actually, language.
Again,
so reading, speaking, writing, and listening, all
yes.
these 4 aspects.
Saumya, I think one of the mistakes that our learners here make is that they think in like a magic formula, you can just get English. We, in fact, have people say, Master Tudeng Ingresi, right? Every time I see that, I'm thinking that's such a wrong message to give, because you're giving the wrong idea that we can do this without hard work. No, you need hard work. It can be fun.
Yes.
You can have, you can watch films, read Time magazine, which is hard, but it's still enjoyable. It doesn't mean pain. But the struggle that you speak about, what Professor Amarakirti spoke about, you need to yourself go through that process of working very hard, internalizing.
Exactly.
That is what we have to understand.
It is a painful journey, Madhu. It's a painful journey. It is fun, but painful.
Also.
It is pleasurable, but painful. Okay. Pleasurable, but painful.
Yes.
So, you have to go through that pain. It gives you pleasure.
Sure.
Pleasure and pain together. So that's how we struggle with this language matter. Then I started writing. It was my writing was very bad. So I started continually writing, reading. So reading and writing both went parallelly. So I submitted my thesis at the end of my study. I submitted my first thesis that I have written in English. I submitted it. So within 2 years' time, I acquired that competency. Within 2 years. That's what I always say to my students at WAPA. You are given four years to do your undergraduate study. Within these 4 years, you can achieve anything.
Yes, sure, but there is a difference there, Saumya. The fact that you were immersed in a culture that had nothing but English.
Context.
Yeah. But the problem with Sri Lankan students is they can survive in Colombo, any part of the country, without a word of English. Not maybe the corporate, you don't get hungry, you die. So one of the issues is when it's an immersive process, the process becomes naturally that much easier simply because you have no choice. But
I admit with that.
Yes, we also have this problem, Saumya. If someone tries to communicate in English in a state university, I'm sure that won't be very positively received by his own batchmates. Card guy, right? Conquer.
Yes, yes.
It's connected with social mobility and class.
No, that's
So
yeah,
huge
yeah.
problems. We have huge psychological problems that prevents one of our non-English speaking person to speak English, because he will be laughed at not just by those who know English. He'll be laughed at by his own group, his or her own.
Yes.
So there are these political, social, psychological barriers which we have to be aware of, which luckily you both, Amarakirti and you, Professor Amarakirti and you, learned it in a different environment where people didn't put you down.
Yes.
So Sri Lankan teaching has a very different context, and this is why
That's true.
in fact, Saumya, the reason I called my channel Atara Madhyava is to say there is an in-between space. Be in the middle. You don't have to hate either group. You don't have to hate the speaking group nor the Sinhala speaking. Come to the middle. It's a long way to go.
Yes.
I really doubt whether one little channel with, is going to make a difference. But at least we're speaking about it here. That we need to progress without dislike, without scorn, without that samacha layer. It's very difficult when you're young. Both of us are now past 40. I'm assuming you're past 40. We don't really mind, right? Being laughed at. But when you're young, it's very, very sensitive. So these are the problems in the Sri Lankan context.
No, that's true. I admit with your idea. That is true. I mean, we learn within a very different context in terms of language learning, particularly English. That is true. But we have a responsibility as academics who are working in our national university system. We can create that environment.
Yes. Yes.
As well. This in-betweenness. We can create that in-betweenness where people are comfortable enough to, use the language without being humiliated and without any other issues. Because in my experience, and after I came back from Melbourne after my PhD, I asked some of my students to write their thesis in English. And luckily, a few students managed to write. For the first time in the history of WAPA, they produced thesis in English. And so it can be done. It is achievable. I know that, it is possible. And some of my students, I know that they use English now. They don't have this fear, because I allowed them I created a kind of environment there within my department where I work, and I created this environment, a comfortable environment where they can make all these mistakes,
So
and working and using English as a communicative medium.
Yeah.
So while I was doing my, as a mentor, while I was doing as a mentor, while I was conducting a lot of things, doing my research work or organizing international conferences, etc. I invited these students to engage with these English-speaking environments where you can meet international people, scholars. They speak in English. So through all these activities, a few still, I mean, I'm happy that they managed to overcome this fear, the problem. And now they work in English and they write their emails in English and they communicate with people in English. They have this confidence and capacity and the vocabulary, etc. So one thing, during my master's at Flinders University, then it was a wonderful time because of this English speaking environment that I was and I was there, and I was doing drama with Australian students, and I was sharing a small apartment with an Australian guy. He's still a very good friend of mine, Sean Witherley. Sean is a little younger to me, but he was a teacher he was a kind of teacher to me during that time. And I was traveling with him in his car. And I still remember I had a small book all the time with me. And I used to write all the Australian slangs, you know. There are so many Australian slangs that they use when they speak. And, you know, it's like you can't understand a single word sometimes because of the slangs that they use. But I started writing all these things. I still remember one thing that he taught me, this phrase: you will see the light at the end of the tunnel, Saumya. You will see the light at the end of the tunnel. For the first time, I learned this thing from Sean. While he was driving, you know, he's talking, he's a young guy, energetic, a musician, opera singer, and actor. So he teaches me. He teaches me English. I'm not like a conventional teacher, but I learn from him and he teaches things. So we shared this same house. So it was a kind of orientation again for me. But what the good thing is, I still remember my professor, Julie Holly. I mean, they didn't care about whether I have a good knowledge of English or what the capacity that I have, etc. They didn't even mention about my language. They allowed me to learn. They created an environment where I can enhance my writing and academic reading and writing. So they finally I achieved that. Then after finishing my master's, I came back and then I joined WAPA as a probationary lecturer. Again, I had this
how did the
learning
PhD
journey.
come about, Saumya? How did the PhD come about?
I will come to that point now. That is the final point that I want to raise here, Madhu. Then after 3 years, I was appointed as a probationary lecturer in 2007. In 2000, within 3 years' time, I got a scholarship full scholarship from the Australian government. Then I received this offer from La Trobe University as a PhD candidate. Then I went there in 2010. The PhD journey is, as you know, is a wonderful, very exciting, at the same time, very difficult and painful journey. You got to go through that, to experience it. It's a suffering, a kind of suffering for 4 years. You suffer things all the time, but you should go through that and experience it. And the expectation that a PhD candidate, PhD, degree is very high. Your academic writing skills should be very high level, and your vocabulary, terminologies, and your referencing skills, and your reading skills, and the ideas, new idea generation, and creative thinking, a lot of skills that you need to develop as a PhD candidate, and research skills, and reading complex text, and accumulating ideas, then writing your own work by using other people's ideas. So it's a very different type of learning, and there's no teacher there. You have 2 supervisors, no teachers at all. Supervisors you meet once a week. That's it. And particularly, Australian supervisors, they have different type of temperaments. I would say they are very kind, very supportive, but they are not pushing you. You are the one who should push yourself. You need to have self-motivation, otherwise you can't do this. Yeah, I mean, nobody is interested in your PhD unless you do your work. Nobody is interested in whether you're reading or not. You are the one who should go to the library and read throughout the day. It was a
Self-motivation.
job.
Self-motivation.
Exactly.
Saumya, I think even now within our campuses, you can get a certificate pretty easily. Now with the pandemic and with all the electronic media available, it's possible to get a certificate without knowledge also now, right? But that's where I think we should have a note of caution. It's about educating ourselves, no? It's not about getting certificates. Yes, it's important. Yes, it's going to be very valuable. But please use that time to also get an education, because it's possible to have a degree and not much knowledge, right? Sadly. Anyway, I think that's possible. So I think what you said, a PhD journey, which I also did in Japan, up to you. Even if you don't do it and go 10 years, your choice, right? No. That kind of getting the responsibility back to you is very important, I think. And I think I wish our campus students also get that. It's up to you. Knowledge, yes, whether you want to acquire it here or whether you want to get a certificate. You can get knowledge even without being in campus. All the books are there. Knowledge is out there, right? So self-improvement. I also always want to make a call for that. Improve yourself through knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, being a PhD candidate, nobody is going to tell you what to do, or how to do it. Even your research work is like that. You have to formulate everything. You have to develop your own work, and you are the one who is going to develop it and work with that material. So it's a very independent and to some extent isolated work, but you have your supervisors behind you all the time. And during my candidature, actually, I with that motivation that I cultivated within myself, Madhu, there are so many resources around you. Being in international university, you have everything there. You have this hub, the big library, and e-resources and document delivery systems.
It's incredible. It's incredible, the resources.
Incredible. Yeah. Exactly. And you have the subject experts
Saumya, but I was
at the library,
like my master's,
you can get some advices.
Yeah, my master's was at NYU, New York University. You should see the library. One of the most stunning buildings. You walk out, you have like 8 or whatever stories of pure books. Huge, beautiful architecture. But also the campus system now, the library system in Sri Lanka is still pretty good. Maybe not the physical, book, but they have e-books. And they will pay the huge amount needed for Jester and all those websites. So one thing is, when you come into the campus system, there is a huge world that opens up to you. So if you can afford it to go to Jester now, all the journals are online. It's no more a matter of going to the library and carrying a book. It's there. Money, yes, because we are both lecturers, we have it free. The campus pays for us. It's all there. But the students, they can make requests and get these ebooks out. So it's a matter of telling them it's out there, now use it. Right? And because most of it is in English, even if you don't understand it completely, you start with children books. Academic writing is not easy. I had to learn, and it was difficult for me, right, as an adult, because I come from a creative writing. Before we end this conversation, Saumya, could you also quickly bring us up to date about your acting career? Did you continue in English theatre or did you not after campus? What happened to acting?
In terms of acting career, Madhu, I couldn't continue, I mean, I was not doing English-speaking theatre continuously, but time to time, when opportunities, emerge, so I sometimes take those opportunities. For instance, when I was at the Drama Centre, Flinders University, South Australia, I did a play with them. And a short film as well. Then not recently, but before I went to my PhD, I think I did another play written and directed by my colleague and my staff member, Indica Ferdinando. Dr. Indica Ferdinando's play. That play was developed and performed for his PhD, as a part of his PhD work, The Irresistible Rise of Mr. Senior. So in this play, actually, I played the lead role with lots of our undergraduate students. And our undergraduate students had a chance to work in English. And now recently, actually, we have introduced another module in our curriculum to work with an English text and perform it in English.
Excellent.
So because our course is running in Sinhala mainly, we teach mainly in Sinhala, but we have introduced a module. In this module, they have to do an English play, and they have to perform it, rehearse it, and perform it in English. We call it scrutinizing a classical text. So likewise, we try to enhance this English-speaking environment and the usage of English language in their curriculum, even though still they use 60%, 75% of language in Sinhala, but we try to improve the language skill, English, because Madhu, we have already encountered this issue of reading, because if you need to get a very updated knowledge of theater and performance studies, you need to read in English. Nothing is available in Sinhala. That is the stark truth. Nothing is available in English at all. If you do a postgraduate degree here, because I'm supervising a couple of theses here, I have postgraduate students. They need to read in Sinhala, not Sinhala, in English, because otherwise they can't do research. They can't write thesis. No journals in Sinhala.
Exactly.
No,
there are journals,
yeah.
but maybe not updated knowledge about your particular field, maybe.
Yeah.
Yes. So I was talking to Dr. Sasanka.
Even there are some terminologies actually that have not been translated into Sinhala yet.
Yes. Professor Sasanka Perera, he was very straightforward. He said, no, you can't. If you want to do academic research, you need to know another language. Maybe not necessarily English, but French, German, or whatever. So that's a reality we face. But also you have showed through what you yourself went through and what you're doing in campus, that it is possible. Hard work, pain, yes, possible. So I think, having academics like you who try to incorporate English language learning to your discipline, it's probably easier for you than many because you're in drama. It's such a heartening thing to see, Saumya, because, all of you know there's a problem, try to attempt it in practical terms, not just talk about it, right? So I had heard of this and what Anasuya and all of you do in your department, and it's very heartening. And then I wanted also to make people hear how much impact drama can have on this whole process, which you showed us about confidence and your own journey. And again, a recurring theme, books. You started with books, right? You read dramatic books probably because of your background, whereas some of us read fiction. So I'm so grateful you're here because you are one of the most respected artists come academics in this country. It's a very rare combination. So to have someone like you come and speak about how this happened and what's possible, because your story is about hope. You told me your student who hasn't used English before wrote a thesis in English. Probably she had to work very hard and she had you to supervise, but it's possible that we need to now look at ways of overcoming whatever problems we have. While we have Sinhala or Tamil, we also learn this to become better at whatever we do. So Professor Saumya Liyanage, I thank you very much. And I also hope to continue this conversation in Sinhala so that even by listening to both Some people may not understand what you said in English, but might hear it in Sinhala and then come back to this. So this again, Atara that we are trying to be comfortable in both languages, right? So I'll see you again while we discuss these issues in Sinhala. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Madhu. Thanks for inviting me to this wonderful discussion.
Okay.
And I believe that you will continue this difficult but very worthwhile task.
I hope
Thank
so.
you so much.
Right. Thank you, Professor. Okay.